Good evening. On behalf of the Total Biodiversity Webinar Committee, myself Pompey Ghosh, HOD, Department of Botany, Shivabharati Mahavidyalaya, welcome all of you in this webinar. Today is 8th webinar under Series 2 of Biodiversity Webinar. In brief, today's program. Our speaker is Little Attoja Abhirupa Das. She will speak about wetland birds. Dr. Boishali M. Banshad, Assistant Professor and HOD, Department of Zoology, PDEA, Baburauji Golab College, Pune, MS, will introduce our today's resource person and will run the discussion session. Dr. Devobroto Das, Associate Professor and HOD, Department of Botany, Lalgor Government College, Jhargram, will announce our next day's program and our coming conferences. Valedictory session will be run by Dr. Rajini Gautam, Associate Professor and HOD, Department of Zoology, Career College, Bhopal, India. Now, I would like to request Dr. Bangshud ma'am to take charge of this session to introduce today's speaker. Madam.
Thank you.
It's
just a
over
second.
to you, madam. Okay, madam.
Yeah. You can hear me? Hello. Hello. You can hear me properly?
Yes, madam.
Good evening to all. I, Dr. Vaishali M. Bansal, thank Dr. Das sir and his full team for making me part of the team, and also introduce today's speaker, Ms. Atmaja Abhirupa Das. She is studying in Standard 8 in Vidyasagar Shishu Niketan. I would call her Greta Thunberg of India because she is economist, she is environmentalist and conservationist in her own way. She is admin of group Atmaja Birding Group and is working in the field of ornithology. Butterfly and its studies also interest her a lot. She studied ornithology in BNHS from Mumbai. She completed 1 year basic course in ornithology. She is the youngest participant in PNHS history and she has visited Amboli in Maharashtra, Goa, Khijadiha in Gujarat, Sattal in Uttarakhand. She has completed course in leadership in biodiversity. She has published about 5 papers and 1 book chapter. She has published this in Elsevier publication. She has delivered umpteen number of lectures and series of lectures. She has extensively studied birds found in agriculture. Her aim is to conserve nature, and under the guidance, this she has done all under the guidance of Dr. Apte sir, Kasambe sir, Dudhe sir, Omkar Joshi, to name a few. At present, she is writing a book. She encourages through these lectures to one and all to join Atmaja's birding group. This is her short biodata, but I call her Greta Thunberg of India because she's studying only in 8th standard and she has done lots of work in the field of conservation and biodiversity. Thank you. Thank you for with the opportunity. Thank you.
So Attoja, please start.
Yeah, good evening and thank you for that flattering introduction. So before starting my presentation, I'll just say a few words that the presentation I'm going to be giving today, you all have also already known the topic, is going to be wetland birds of India. So I'll be specifically focusing on Indian birds and the types of wetlands and also their conservation. So without any further ado, I'll just present myself. I hope the presentation is visible, right? The presentation is visible or not? Somebody please answer. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, Atmaja, it is visible.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yes. So as you have known my topic, wetland birds of India, and I'll be starting. So before everything, I'll just give a short introduction to what a wetland is. So in our common eyes, at first glance, any water body may be a wetland, but that is not actually the common definition of wetland. But if I will say that in a frank manner, then it will be an area that is completely or partially covered by water. So it may be fresh water, it may be salt water, it may be deep, it may be shallow. And I have given some examples here that are rivers, lakes, floodplains, marshes, swamps. There are other also like peats and bogs, burns, etc. And I'll just come to the correct definition of wetland according to IUCN, just shortly. And I have here written that wetlands are constantly evolving ecosystems. So you mean by that, water bodies get filled with water when it rains in the rainy season. So that time, when the water body's depth is more, it gets a specific type of characteristics. Or in dry season, when the water level is low, that time also it evolves into a specific kind of ecosystem. So with this, you can see that a wetland has both, a mixture of different characteristics for ecosystem, and that's why it is known as a transitional ecotone area, because it has a transition between the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, and also it is completely evolving always. It is gathering more water, it is becoming shorter, etc. Now for the correct definition of a wetland. As per Ramsar Convention, so I will come to Ramsar Convention a little while later. So the correct definition of a wetland according to Ramsar Convention is areas of marsh, fen, peatland or water, whether natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or floating, fresh, brackish or salt, including areas of marine, the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. So 6 meters has been drawn as an, the line edge point for the correct definition of a wetland. But if you frankly say about a wetland, it is just an area completely or partially covered by water. Now I'll just go to types of wetlands. So for different types of wetland birds or water birds in common way, the types of wetlands or knowing the different categories of wetlands is very important. So there are thousands of wetlands in this world, and there are hundreds of different types. So you cannot never classify every of them, but in a stepwise manner, if you can classify, then IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, has identified 39 different categories of wetlands. So 30 of them are natural and the rest are man-made. But you never know how many wetlands it will be in future. Like in future, we'll get more classifications. We will get more different kinds. So this number is first stable. So it will completely on, it is always changing. Now, based on the type of water and wetland contains, wetlands are categorized into two main types: saltwater wetlands and freshwater wetlands. So this is just the first division that has been brought up. That is the main division that is based on the type of water they are containing, and this affects the type of creatures that live in the wetland, the different type of ecosystem that this wetland has. So yes, saltwater wetlands. So I'll first come to saltwater wetlands. The most of the wetlands are saltwater wetlands, and to be said, saltwater wetlands are the bigger wetlands compared to the freshwater wetland. So, for defining saltwater wetlands, these are mostly coastal, marine, or estuarine habitats. They have a source of salt water. Maybe ocean, maybe sea, but they're connected to a saltwater body through any way, or they are sometimes also flooded. Flood brings water in place. And saltwater wetlands are also further subdivided into subtidal and intertidal. These are two main ones, and there are other different definitions. So, by the way, subtidal means that the wetland will always contain a permanent shallow water. Means the vegetation or the flora of the area will always be covered by water. That is shallow, but that will be permanent. Now, sea bays, straits, there are these kind of wetlands. Now, intertidal wetlands are those that during low tide will be exposed to the air, but during high tide will be covered with water. So, like rocky shores and mud flats, salt flats, this is a wetland that has like two phases, during high tide and during low tide. Now, for other different types, estuaries are another different classification of saltwater wetland. To be a very main kind of category. Estuarine wetlands are also known as estuaries in short. So these are like the connection point of two water sources, mostly of freshwater and saltwater. Like a river and a sea, or a river and an ocean. In that type of area, like deltas, estuarine habitats are found. Estuarine wetlands. And these are also just like the first one, like the main saltwater wetlands. These are also divided into subtidal and intertidal. So I already told the definition. So subtidal wetlands will be found on the borders, or the estuarine borders. They'll found subtidal wetland, and intertidal will be salt pans, mud flats, sand flats, etc. Now we come to lagunar wetlands and salt flats. So these are just some basic ones, but they are very famous ones, because the types of birds I will be talking about today have a very good connection with these two types of wetlands. So lagoon, we already know what lagoon is. Lagoon is a small salt water body that is connected to the other water body and also divided from it from any kind of patches like coral reefs or sand barriers, etc. So this type of wetlands are formed when the lagoons have low tide, and like most of the surface is actually exposed. So it forms a swampy, marshy wetland that is known as a lagoon wetland. Now we come to salt flats. So salt flats are patches of ground that are covered in salt and other minerals also, and most times they contain shallow waters. Like if you go to Gujarat or Mumbai, these areas, the most of the salt pans you will see where flamingos are present are muddy salt pans. They are always covered in water that is not too deep, that is shallow water, and you'll find like thousands of flocks of birds there. So salt flats or salt pans are very much related with wetland or waterfalls. Now we will come to freshwater wetlands. So freshwater wetlands, are the source of the sweet water. Like we divide water into two types, that is salt water and sweet water. So freshwater wetlands mostly contain sweet water, and they can be riverine and lagostrine, etc. There are different kinds of these. So they are mostly landlocked wetlands. Sometimes they are connected to other water bodies, but never a saltwater body. And the moment it comes into a connection to the saltwater body, I have told earlier, it becomes estuary. So I have divided it into three more types. There are other more divisions. So the main is riverine wetland. So riverine means something that is connected to a river. So riverine wetlands are wetlands that are connected to a river, like floodplains, then streams, then some grasslands that have been flooded due to that river. Those can be categorized under riverine wetlands. Now, lacustrine wetlands. So, lacustrine, this word means stagnant or static. So, a water body that, lacustrines mostly are landlocked bodies, general common sense. Otherwise, how can it be static? It will always be receiving tidal waters if it is not landlocked. So, lacustrine waterlands, if I have to say an example, I would say landlocked freshwater bodies. Some unwanted sounds are coming. The host, please see what it is. Now we'll be coming to artificial wetlands. So, artificial wetlands, otherwise known as man-made wetlands, are those that have been constructed due to human need. Like, for storing water for irrigation. In different areas, canals are made, then reservoirs are made. Sometimes those also are transformed into artificial wetlands. Also, in our area, due to aquaculture, pisciculture, different farms are opened. Those also become artificial wetlands. Now, it is not that in a building, if a pisci farm is there, it will become a wetland. It has to be natural area, it has to be a large area. But sometimes artificial wetlands are also formed due to these reasons. Now I'll come to Ramsar Convention. So in the first slide I had said that what is the definition of a wetland according to Ramsar Convention. So what is exactly the Ramsar Convention? So in different news you will hear that there are this many Ramsar sites in India. This has been declared a new Ramsar site. So this Ramsar Convention is actually a treaty for the conservation of wetlands. So its full name is Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance as Waterfowl Habitat. Now this word waterfowl is related to birds. So Ramsar Convention is actually conserving different wetlands that are of a significant use for birds. And it's not that every wetland is a Ramsar Convention site. It fulfills a specific set of criteria. Actually, there are 9 different criteria that it has to fulfill to become a Ramsar site. So it was signed in Iran. Actually, Ramsar is a city in Iran on 22nd February 1971. That's why it has got the name Ramsar Convention. So there are different signatories all over the world. I will not go into those details. So at present, according to the information of 2021, there are 2,424 Ramsar sites in India. And in the world and in our India, there is a debate that there are 46 or 48 Ramsar sites. So actually, if you go deep into the research, you will find that there are actually 2 more added, which now have not been, placed on the list actually, but they have been added. So subtotally, there are 48 Ramsar sites present in India. Now this is the logo for Ramsar site. And this map shows the different Ramsar and convention sites all over India. You might find in this map there are some sites are not there, some may be not there, some may be there. But this is a moreover map, but there are 48 of them here. There are very famous ones. You will find like Bhitarkanika in Odisha. Then you will find Bharatpur in Gujarat, or like Khana National Park. Then you will find Point Kalimar in Tamil Nadu. In Kerala also many are there. In Middle India also many are there. You will see Manipur's Loktak is there. There are different, many of them. Now I will come to some famous wetlands in India. So this map shows the different Ramsar sites. So these wetlands are already Ramsar sites and they are very famous as well. That's why I'm showing them. I've just chosen some of these which have high, avifauna rate and I would also say high tourist rate. They are very famous actually. So first of all, we'll come to Kerala, Ghana, then Chilka in Odisha, Pittarkanika also in Odisha, Loktak in Manipur, Point Calimar in Tamil Nadu, Ashtamudi. Then Sundarbans, both in India and Bangladesh, both are there in India's. Okay, so one more thing that Bangladesh's Sundarban was already declared a Ramsar site a long time ago. But our India's part of Sundarban that is located in West Bengal that has been declared Ramsar site just a few times ago. So that is not to be confused. It is a part of India's Sundarban. This is the Kerala National Park gate. Then this is Sundarbans, the mangrove estuarine type of habitat. Then Chilka Lake. It has been, you see here, it has been also designated as a Ramsar site. The date has been also there. Then Bhitarkanika. Then this is Loktak in Manipur. Then Point Calimar in Tamil Nadu. Then is Ashtamudi Lake. Now, all after this, I'll come to wetland birds. Now, how do you define wetland birds? So, birds that are related to water bodies that you will find near water bodies. Not just some bird is sitting near a lake that is a water body. So, due to residential purposes, like it is its habitat or feeding purposes, breeding purposes, etc., then you can say a bird is a wetland bird or a water bird. So there are different species of water bird. You will find seabirds, you will find waterfowl, storks, flamingos, then you will find snipes. Different kinds of birds are there. Now, a very common question arises, why do birds like wetlands and habitats? There are many different habitats out there. They could have been terrestrially habitated, but why are they aquatically habitated? So, wetlands actually provide us extremely good habitats for birds. It has the current, and the sheer water source. They will never face any, scarcity of water, only if the wetland dries out. They'll find somewhere other. And the food source there is very wide range. You'll find from mollusks to aquatic fish, there are snails. You'll also find some aquatic small insects. So those things, also algae is there. So these are very wide ranged food choices for them there. Also, for many different birds, breeding grounds are provided there. Okay. And yes. So it acts as a breeding ground for many different birds. Also, it attracts birds from all over India. Even outside of India, birds are there. Now we come to why are water birds important. In my previous talks, I have discussed why birds are important. Now, why to specifically say water birds are important? We say water is life. Water is the most important factor of life, and we need our water to be healthy. It also may be seawater. You can't drink seawater, but the world will not survive without seawater. So you want your water to be healthy. And healthy water doesn't only mean it has to be drinkable. And healthy water means something that is not polluted, something that can be used for different purposes. So birds, I have told in my earlier talks that birds are very good, exceptional bioindicators. They can indicate the fewer, the most subtle changes in the environment that we can't see. That's why, the presence of water birds near a water body gives the best mark that the water body is healthy. That is the common sense, because birds need a healthy habitat to live. They need food, they need water. So if the water body is having all of them, then the bird is attracted. If the bird is attracted, that means the water body is healthy. Also, I have talked about ecological change. I will not talk about it much now, because I've already said that this change is like a complete staircase. If one of the stairs is missing, this chain will break. So that's why they prove to be an extremely important part in the chain of the aquatic area. Every area has a small chain everywhere. So in that area, these birds have, contribute as a main factor for that chain. Now, there are other small factors also, like, different bird sanctuaries, like I was saying about Keoladha Ghana in Rajasthan. So, that area has, numerous different kinds of birds that come from different parts of the place. And it I have visited that place. It charges people for entry. So that is a source of income for the local people. They're also for the government. So birds are creating, these water birds are creating and place for tourist attraction. That is also becoming an income source for us. Also, water birds help in the propagation of different propagules of small aquatic plants. These are just some of the main and major ones. There are thousands of different other factors. Now, I'll just show some common birds of India that are related to these wetlands. So, it's not that the birds I'm showing are the only common birds. There are many of them. If I start to show them, it will take one full month. So, first of all is the northern pintail. And pintail, because I'll just show you right now. Pintail, that is because of the tail here. The tail is like a pin. That's why it is known as a pintail. And next we have oriental darter or the snake bird. Known as the snake bird, you see the neck. The neck is like very elongated like a snake. So that is known as a snake bird, oriental darter. Now we have northern shoveler. Why to say it's shoveler? The beak is like a shovel that is used for digging. That's why it is known as a northern shoveler. Then lesser whistling duck. So its call is like a whistle. If you hear the call, it's like a whistle. That's why whistling duck. Now ruddy shell duck. It's also known as Brahmini duck and many other names are there. Now the great white pelican. Pelican, I have told in my earlier lectures what is the specialization of pelicans, the beak. Now spot-billed pelican. Then Eurasian moorhen, purple swamp hen. Then you will find bronzed-winged jacanas. Then pheasant-tailed jacanas. Then knob-billed duck. The famous name has been derived from the comb-like structure on its bill, also known as the comb-billed duck or knob-billed duck, etc. Then little grape, then great cormorant, then you have your Asian open bill stork. The bill is always in a structure of open cavity. Then you have black-headed ibis and the little egret. Now to identify little egret, I'll just show a very quick one. The feet. The feet are yellow colored except for all of the leg. The leg is black colored. In no egret you will find the leg is yellow colored. Means only the feet, the legs may be yellow, but the feet is especially yellow for little egret. So a plus identification point here. Now Eurasian spoonbill, the bill, especially interesting, looks like a spoon. Now this is white-collared kingfisher. It is found in Vitharkanika Sundarbans. We find in those estuarine mangrove habitats. Now common kingfisher, then greater flamingo and lesser flamingo. Now a very interesting identification point here. I will just dive a little bit into identification here. Greater flamingo has a softer, more gentler and a less more whitish tone rather than pink. A lesser flamingo has more of a reddish pinkish tone rather than white. That's the main difference. Now painted stork. Then this is your Indian cormorant. A very interesting fact again as identification. You see a Indian cormorant, you will see this eye over here. A blue colored emerald kind of eye. Bluish green colored eye. Sapphire-ish emeraldish color. So that is a very good identification point for Indian cormorant. Yes. So now after all this, I'll just come to the relationship between wetland birds and the environment. So our environment actually is a whole new setup. So this environment has all the creatures are linked to each other, like a network. In your, if you have studied computer network, ITC, information technology. So in that you see each and every component is linked to each other. And environment is the same thing. Just a different case, but the same thing. our environment, every and each creature is linked to each other, and no creature will survive. If if the link is broken. So the major point is wetland birds and our wetland environment both exist together as a whole. So their main importance is that they comprise of this healthy environment, and they have a complete, they make a complete ecosystem actually. And other, relationships are that they provide different small animals provide for these birds food, and these birds also provide for others food. Also, plants. If I say aquatic plants also provide for different food for different birds, and oxygen also to other different organisms, and also the birds. And the most important thing is aquatic plants provide as the most essential, component for this wetland. Also, I told earlier, wetland birds act as different dispersers of seeds of aquatic plants. Now, I'll come to conservation. So, this is a major issue. In our today's world, water pollution has taken a whole, leap. I'll not go to ocean pollution or plastic pollution, etc. I'll just come to common water pollution. So, in my local areas, I'll just tell a life experience. In my local areas, I have a pond near my house. Every morning I see people coming and dumping their household waste in the pond. People think these will biodegrade and this will not cause much issue, and that is true. But if 1,000 people are coming and just dumping their waste in the pond, and the amount of waste is like huge, then it will never biodegrade. It will take a lot of time, and the whole ecosystem of that pond will be destroyed. That's just a life experience that I have experienced in my house, near my house. But this thing is happening to each and every wetland. So water pollution, or I would just commonly say pollution, it deeply affects the water bodies and other organisms that are living there. And thus contributes, and thus protecting these wetlands, stopping this pollution contributes largely to the protection of these wetlands. Now, government has different policies for protection, but if the policies are not, in practice, if they are not implemented, then how will these policies work? So, in different areas, I have seen the placards are there: don't throw plastic, don't waste this, don't waste that, don't waste water. But wasting water is a different thing. But I'm just giving an example that signs are placed, people are saying, but nobody is caring, nobody is listening. So if these policies are not implemented on people, then how will people follow the policies? So that's why, strict supervision is extremely necessary, and people's awareness. If people are aware, then no strict supervision is needed. So, these both things are needed to make sure that these policies are implemented correctly. Also, there are other different things like for conservation, other different things are there, like in small areas, due to overfishing, the whole aquatic areas, whole ecosystem is being destroyed due to overfishing. It might sound that just taking some fish out of the water body is nothing, it will not hurt the environment, but that is not true, because in some areas overfishing has got to such an extent that government had to put no fishing signs in that area. People have faced problems. Many fishermen have lost their daily income sources. Many people have stopped catching fish, but government has to put symbols and boundaries, otherwise overfishing has led to such an increase. Like for example, let me give you an example. In Bihar, and wetland is there. It is not an Ramsar Convention site, but that area is full of birds. I have gone to that area once. So that area, when I went there in 2017, that time it was like people were just overfishing in that area, like in a high rate. Each and every, the whole bank of the river, it was a lake actually. Whole back of the lake was full of fishing nets and fishing poles. But when I went there in 2019, the last time I went there. Government has just placed no fishing signs all over the lake and there was you see no single people there. But I also asked some local people that if the rate of fishes have increased, like you can see some fishes, you will see bubbles in the air, birds will come. But they is told that no fishes are there. So even if government has placed sign, there are no fishes. Even if people have stopped, there are no fishes. That is due to overfishing. So even in a span of 2 years, the thing that has been lost cannot be, gotten back. So everywhere, when we get a disease, it is said that precaution is better, than medicine. So that is why precaution is extremely necessary. People's awareness, people's participation in these things, and also, governmental policies, they have to be followed. So these are important things. So I would not say much more things. I will just say that by showing you all this, my main motto was to tell you that, wetlands are an extremely beautiful place, and you will see varieties of things there. It is an, sight of awe and wonder. So just protect these things, and nothing has to be done more. Just follow the policies. Just make yourself aware. It is told that you have to change yourself to see the change in the world. So just make yourself aware, make your friends and families aware. Get involved in different awareness programs, conduct different surveys. Make people also see and learn that awareness and protection is an important thing. So with that, I would not say much. Thank you. And yeah. And today's my talk was not so much. It was less because I had some problems, personal problems. But I hope with all these things, I have, shown you something. I have taught you that, environmental protection, especially this water, wetland protection is very important, and your own awareness can cause a great change.
So thank you, Atuja. Now discussion session. Boisali madam, are you there? Boisali madam?
Yes. Hello. Yeah.
Madam, please take charge of this discussion session.
Okay, I'll just go through. Any questions? Any questions from audience?
Hello.
Hello.
Boisali madam, myself Devbroto sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, many questions registered participants gave in the form, and
Okay.
I will just read some questions.
Okay.
That is better. One question: conservation of wetland biodiversity, already answered. How many wetlands in India? Already answered. Will you get participate certificate? Participation certificate will provide at the end of the series. Each series will provide, each series will, that is 10 lectures. What type of wetland birds in Tamil Nadu? So you can ask question to the presenter. What type of wetland birds in Tamil Nadu? For future generations, another question. How wetland ecosystems forms? How many species of birds in wetland? How a wetland become economically important? Already answered. How they migrate? That is how bird migrate. Bird migration is different aspects. We will I think arrange another lecture for bird migration by another resource persons. How wetlands play a role in ecology and conservation? Already answered. Biodiversity in literature. That I think Atuja will discuss. Why wetland study is important to us? Already answered. Role of wetlands is social life. Will we get a participation certificate? Another that is questions. Already we will provide at the end of the series. What is the role of plants and phytoplanktons in growth, development and distribution of wetlands birds? I think Atuja will answer. How many wetlands in India is there wild animals affected by COVID-19? That is not related to today's lecture. How wetland management done to make the position eco-friendly? Birds of freshwater wetlands. What are the alpha and beta diversity? Uh, Next, will any field visit ever be conducted by the target by this group? Importance of wetland birds, uh, uh, constructions of high-rise buildings, and something that is one having the idea. In this case, where do they go after diverting? That is, birds will go after that type of constructions of high-rise buildings. How to serve wetland biology, how can identify male and female birds in an area, what is that is bryophyte. I think this is wrongly presented here. It will be bryophyta. Previous days actually discussion, I think questions. How to protect our local wetland by common people. How can a wetland help for economic developments of the locality? I did not receive last webinar certificate. Already asked the actually questions and answer. Describe wetland. So Atuja, now all the questions are actually delivered by me from the registration form. So Vaisali ma'am, you are requested to present the major one to Atuja, and Atuja will discuss. Vaisali ma'am? Vaisali ma'am, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, these are the questions actually taken from the registration form. During that time, actually gave the questions, and these are the questions.
Went through this in-call messages. There is one question that how many wetlands are there in the whole world. This is a
Acha.
question from Emmanuel.
Atuja,
Atuja,
now
please.
answer the questions.
How many wetlands are there in the whole world? This is the question from
Yes,
our
yes.
participant Emmanuel. Yes, please.
So, you can never calculate the number of wetlands specifically in the whole world. Because everywhere, every day, some wetlands are being formed. Some bogs are being formed, some small pits are being formed. So you can't ever, just take the number of the wetlands. But for a recent survey that I saw on internet, I had been told that there are like over 46,000 wetlands, classified wetlands, I would say, not just any pond or lake. I would say classified wetlands all over the world. Classified means, selective salt water, selective fresh water, all these type of wetlands. There are over 46,000 wetlands. But if you go for a number like you will conclude every lake and every pond, then there is no number count. It is not countable. It is uncountable. Yeah. For the next question.
Yeah, there's one more question from Balaknath Bhattacharya. He is asking that it has been observed that in the evening, the water birds fly in flocks to distant places and they roost in certain trees there. And at the dawn, come again to water bodies. So kindly enlighten on this. In the evening, the water birds fly in flocks to different places, distant places, and then they roost on certain trees. And in the morning, they come back again to the water bodies. Enlighten on this.
Yeah, I got the question. So, birds will not stay in the water or the water for the whole night. Nobody can survive in the water for the whole night. Somebody who is actually terrestrial. Birds are actually not water-dwelling creatures. They may be aquatically related, but they are not water-dwelling creatures. They can't, breathe in the water. So, birds, they come to rest or roost on the trees that are near the water bodies. And birds are, social creatures, that they are not solitary creatures, so they will always fly in flocks. So that time they go to small trees where they are present in the water birds, and you said distant places. So it is not possible that every night birds will go to distant places and they will come back in the morning. It can be they will go a few kilometers away from the water body, but it's not they will go much distance from the water body. And after the night stay, they will again come back in the the next day for feeding or other purposes. So, if there are no other questions, then I will go to the questions that are
No more
presented.
questions. No more questions in informal message.
Okay, so I'll go to the question that have been presented before. Yeah. Um, so for the questions, how is the wetland economically important? So, for economically important, wetlands are the source of all of the marine things, marine creatures of the world. So fish and everything is coming from the wetlands. Also, from certain specific wetlands, you'll get certain specific algae, certain specific, functioning bacteria that people collect and use for different purposes. So in this, and mainly, marine fish is the main important actually. Okay. Then also, crabs are there, different aquatic animals are there. Okay. So next question actually. I'm just searching for the questions. Actually, many of them are irrelevant questions, so I will not take those. Yeah, so somebody has asked about birds of freshwater wetlands. So, you can't classify birds among freshwater and saltwater wetlands. Birds are not, water sensitive in that manner. Wherever they will get their specific food choice, they will go. So, for freshwater birds, I won't say about any kind of specific classification. But if you say about saltwater birds, I will say in salt pans and all these areas, you will see waders. Then you see birds that, probing birds. Those birds feed by probing. So you'll see those kind of birds. But freshwater, I will not say any specific classification. Okay, how to protect our local wetland by common people? Okay, very good question. So I was talking about governmental policies. So these policies are made by the government. So we can't make policies. We are common people. So the only thing we can do is we can create awareness. We have to be ourselves aware. We have to create awareness, and wherever there is a very common, people, everyone knows that the united we stand, divided we fall. So if people stand together, if they have a common understanding, if they have a common awareness in this together, then you can protect or conserve any your any of your local wetland if that is being deteriorated, if that is being unjustly used or abused. Okay, I see one more question in the chat. So can we create a wetland at home? It's not possible. Statically, it is not possible. So, as I told you earlier, a wetland has to be a large area. You can create, small ponds near your home. There may be, but you cannot create a whole wetland near your home. That is not possible.
Can I ask the question?
Yes, please go forward.
So there has been a lot going on about restoring the wetlands for especially migratory birds in India. So is it possible? So if once a migratory bird selects not to come to a particular site, will they come there again even if you restore it? Because they come to places which they know where best
Just
pasture is.
repeat it once. I could not get the first part. Just repeat it once.
There have been many efforts going on for restoring wetlands, but for migratory birds especially. But even if the wetland is restored, the migratory birds come there based on their previous memory, right? So will they choose that place? Will they ever come back again if they once left that place?
Yeah.
I mean, if
I
the
understand the
habitat is
question.
destroyed.
Okay, it is very difficult to restore anything that has been deteriorated, especially such a large ecosystem. But if you get to restore it, if you may have even restored it, once the birds have left that area, they will not come back to that area for a long time, because they know that that area has been gone, that is gone, and they don't know that you have restored it, right? So there are very less chances they will come. But if, in certain cases we have seen that migratory birds, once that I would say rather not. Yes, migratory birds, they will not come to that area again. It can be local birds will come, but migratory birds, they come once a year or twice a year, and they have a specific place. But if they know that the space is deteriorated, it is not there, then they will not come. So it is there is hard chances for them to come. It maybe they will come in years, but at a present they will not come.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I got one more question in the chat.
Does
Do
one
wetland
more
birds-
question, ma'am?
Yeah.
There's
I
one
got
more
the
question
question.
from Dr. Pradeep Desai, sir. The question goes like this: does wetland birds spread corona like bird flu?
Okay, this question. Um, bird flu is not spread by each and every bird, right? And it is not specific that wetland birds will spread bird flu. And COVID is a whole new case. COVID is spread through a different thing, and COVID main host is humans actually. Uh, I would say mammals, but there are no reports of birds spreading COVID. If research may go like this, research may find that birds spread COVID, but till date, there is no report of birds spreading COVID. So there is no fear in birds actually. But bird flu may be there. You can get bird. That may be there. So I find no more questions are there. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat and we'll answer.
Yeah, no more questions here.
So no more questions. Boisele ma'am?
Yes, all questions finished from involved
clear,
messages. No more questions
Okay.
here.
Thank you, Boisele ma'am, to be present here and done this session. Very good. Now I would like to request Dr. Das to announce about next day's webinar and our upcoming conferences. Dr. Das, please.
Thank you, madam. We are going to organize one international conference on 25th, 26th and 26th November 2021. Time 7 to 9:30 p.m. each day. So we already received 23 papers for publication in UGC Care List 2 journal. All the paper reviewed by our team members as well as our conference participants, particularly assistant professor, associate professor, professor, scientist and retired scientist, so on. So already papers are in press. In the end of the November, I think we will publish the special volume in the UGC Care List 2 journal, and the articles for book chapter already received, and we are receiving book chapters, those who registered up to 20th, and after reviewing all the articles, we will place the articles for publications in ISSN book form, and we are going to refer the book from university to carry points in cash promotion. Our next international, that is conference 25th, 26th, 27, and followed by national level biodiversity building block conference to be held in the month of December 22nd and 23rd. So those who are interested can send their full length paper, not abstract, full length paper for publication in the UGC KR1 or KR2 or ISSN form book chapter. But remember that no registration for international conference as well as for the national level conference. That is only for knowledge dissemination program. If anyone feel interest, please send their articles. You can present here. Previously, that is in international conference, those who presented paper for publications in the UGC KList 2 or as book chapter form are allowed to present here, that is in the conference. But in the biodiversity building conference, all are allowed to participate here as presenter and participants. So register yourselves and send your article. Similarly, in normal program, our next week, one resource person, Dr. Vidyanath Jha, retired principal and professor of botany, LN Mithila University, Darbhanga, Bihar, will present here. The series is Environment and Development, series 2, number 8. Sir's topic is vetiver. You know vetiver is Vetiveria zizanoides and other species also available here. So vetiver, a multi-faced grass producing a message of land conservation and natural development. Sir will deliver lecture on 20th November 2021. So we will provide the registration link. Please register yourself in the chat box, also in the WhatsApp group, in the Telegram group. We will provide the link. Thank you. Thank you again. Pompi madam, on the session.
Thank you, Devabrata sir. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rajini Gautam madam, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Zoology, Career College, Bhopal, India, to run this valedictory session. Madam, Rajini
Thank
madam.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for inviting me to give vote of thanks. Good evening, all. I self Dr. Rajni Gautam, Associate Professor Zoology, Career College, Bhopal. It's really a matter of great pleasure to me to get an opportunity to propose vote of thanks on this online November gathering. I am indeed deeply influenced by our today's speaker, Atmaja Avirupa Das, admin Atmaja Birding Group, Midnapur, West Bengal. It is really commendable that you have achieved such a deep understanding of the subject at a very young age. The way you have described about wetland birds of India is really awesome. It is evident that you have in-depth knowledge about the birds. I would like to thank the organizers, Dr. Debrata Das, Admin, Flora and Fauna, Asia Group and Associate Professor of Botany, Lalgarh, Government College, Lalgarh, Jhargram, and Dr. Pampi Ghosh, Assistant Professor of Botany, Seva Bharati Mahavidyalaya, Kapgadi, Jhargram, West Bengal, for organizing a very successful webinar on the subject, which will certainly help the participants to understand the content of the topic completely. I would like to convey my sincere appreciation to Dr. Vaishali M. Bansod, Assistant Professor and HOD of PDEA Babu Rao Ji Golab College, Pune, Maharashtra, who who introduced our speaker in an excellent way. In fact, her introduction was perfect, which has covered all the specialty, qualifications, and achievements of our speaker in such a way that had satisfied our curiosity to know about her. My special thanks to Drishtikon Organization and Flora and Fauna Asia Facebook group for providing necessary support and guidance to organize this excellent webinar. It was really difficult to organize this webinar without their help, inspiration, and cooperation. And in last but not in the least, I would like to thank all the enthusiastic participants who, in spite of their busy schedule throughout the day, have taken time to attend the webinar and had to make this webinar a great success. Thank you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for take charge of this session and done very well. Thank you, madam. And madam is our Attoja's Birding Group's one renowned member. And from the beginning of this Attoja's Birding Group, she is an active participant, and she is always encouraging us and our groups. And now all of you are with us, and we want your auspicious presence in every webinar to make it success. Thanks to all the participants, all the researchers, all the professors, and all the dignitaries, and after all, Attoja. Actually, today, three resource persons actually first they told that they will do this webinar, but they reject for their personal problems, and Attoja within a very short time done her work, and actually she done all the work today. And as a student, she is a class 8 student, and she has classes during all the daytime, and she was unable to do her presentation. That's why this presentation is in a very short form. And Attoja, thanks for your hard work, and in future we would like to hear from you about broad lecture from you, and then a vast lecture. Okay, Attoja.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Then good night, and officially today's program is over. Thanks all the members, our birding group's member, and all resource persons who have done their work in these webinars, earlier webinars, especially Rajani ma'am and Banshad ma'am. Thanks. So good night to all. Thanks to all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good night.
And these are for next program that we do.